Jack had always been a man of ambition. From his early days at Harvard University, where he met the love of his life, Jane, he had set his sights on success. Jack's journey began with dreams of making it big, dreams of providing his family with the finest luxuries that life could offer, and he had succeeded, at least on the surface. Now in his 40s, Jack was a successful investment banker at Sterling Capital, a prestigious financial institution in the heart of Manhattan. His office on the top floor of a towering skyscraper was a testament to his professional achievements. The walls adorned with framed degrees from Harvard, certificates of excellence, and family photos showcasing their luxurious life. But beneath the facade of success lay a man who had lost himself. Jack's connection to Jane and their 3 children, Skipper, Joni, and little Ethan, had dwindled over the years as he climbed the corporate ladder. What was once a loving family was now a group of people living under the same roof, rarely interacting. Jack's life had become a relentless cycle of work and sleep deprivation. He often slept no more than 4 hours a night, his mind consumed by the demands of his high-pressure job. He couldn't help but worry that his lack of sleep was taking a toll on his memory and mental health, but he felt trapped. He couldn't afford to leave his job, the penthouse on 42nd Street, the extravagant lifestyle, and the prestigious Central Park preparatory school for his children all depended on his 6-figure income. One fateful day, as Jack was rushing to yet another high-stakes meeting, he ran into someone he hadn't seen in decades, Mike, his childhood friend and once his closest confidant. Mike had moved away after 5th grade, and their paths had diverged ever since. It was pure chance that they crossed paths on the bustling streets of Manhattan. "Jack, is that you?" Mike called out. Jack turned, and there, amidst the crowd, stood a familiar face from his past. They embraced, and Jack felt a sudden surge of nostalgia. They decided to catch up over dinner that night. As they sat across from each other in a dimly lit restaurant, Jack found himself opening up to Mike in a way he hadn't done in years. He recounted his struggles, his regrets, and the deep sense of unhappiness that had settled within him. Jack cried for the first time in ages, tears of frustration, despair, and longing for the person he used to be. Mike listened patiently, offering his support and understanding. He was glad to see his old friend, even if it meant witnessing Jack's vulnerability. That night, after hours of conversation and emotional release, Jack made a decision. He called in sick to work the following day, something he had never done before, even when he was truly ill. He wanted to make the day special for Jane, to rekindle the connection they had lost. When Jane asked about his sudden change in behavior, Jack explained about his encounter with Micah and the flood of emotions that had come pouring out. Jane was taken aback but relieved that Jack had finally confided in her. She suggested something that had never crossed his mind: quitting his job. "We have investments, Jack," she said. "We'll have to make some changes, give up the penthouse, and scale back on the extravagant lifestyle. But it's worth it, if it means we can have you back." Jack's heart swelled with gratitude. He realized that his family's happiness was more important than their material possessions. The following weeks were a whirlwind of changes. Jack's children transferred to a public school, leaving behind the elite preparatory academy. To their surprise, they felt liberated and free to be themselves. Jane returned to her passion as a school teacher, finding joy in nurturing young minds once again. She never saw Jack's decision as a broken promise. Instead, she cherished the opportunity to work and contribute. And Jack, well, he went back to his true passion, theater. He returned to school, pursuing acting with the same fervor he had once reserved for banking. Living off their investments and Jane's income, he rekindled his love for the performing arts. Months later, Jack became a famous comedian in New York City, performing to packed audiences every weekend and earning a comfortable living doing what he loved. Jack had transformed from a stressed and distant father into a man who prioritized his family's happiness. Money had lost its grip on him, and in its place he found fulfillment in the laughter of others. His family had never been happier, and they all knew one thing for sure: money isn't everything. With a newfound sense of purpose and direction, Jack embarked on his journey into the world of comedy. He traded his tailored suits and meticulously groomed appearance for jeans, t-shirts, and a scruffy beard. Gone were the long hours at the office. Instead, his days were filled with acting classes, open mic nights, and spontaneous bursts of creativity. Jane, who had once feared that her husband's revelation would lead to chaos, found herself pleasantly surprised. Jack's transformation was like a breath of fresh air in their home. The tension that had hung over their family was replaced with laughter, and the children were quick to embrace their father's newfound zest for life. Skipper and Joni, who had initially been apprehensive about leaving their prestigious prep school, soon realized that attending a public school was not the end of the world. In fact, they felt more accepted and free to be themselves than ever before. They no longer had to conform to the rigid expectations of their former classmates, and the weight of social pressure was lifted from their shoulders. Ethan, the youngest of the family, couldn't have been happier to see his father more often. He had grown up with a distant father figure, and the sudden change in their relationship warmed his heart. He now had a dad who was present, who played games with him, and who could make him laugh until his belly hurt. As for Jack's career in comedy, it took off faster than anyone had expected. His reputation as a talented and relatable comedian grew with each performance. Word of mouth and social media buzzed with excitement whenever Jack made an unannounced appearance at a local comedy club. His shows were always packed, and his audiences left with tears of laughter streaming down their faces. It wasn't long before talent scouts and comedy agents took notice. Offers poured in, but Jack was determined to take things at his own pace. He didn't want to compromise the newfound balance he had achieved within his family. He continued to perform in New York City, earning a comfortable income, but he resisted the temptation of fame and touring that could have taken him away from his loved ones. Instead, Jack became known as the pop-up comedian of New York City. He would show up unannounced at various comedy clubs, and his loyal following would spread the news through social media. Fans flocked to see him, and the venues he visited thrived. In the midst of his success, Jack stayed grounded. He still made time for his family, often taking them to his shows and including them in his creative process. He encouraged Skipper, Joni, and Ethan to pursue their own interests, emphasizing the importance of being true to oneself. Jane, now a dedicated schoolteacher, found fulfillment in her work and in the vibrant family life they had all rediscovered. The penthouse on 42nd Street was replaced with a cozy apartment in a quieter neighborhood, but none of them missed the opulence they had left behind. With each passing day, Jack's sleep improved, and the dark circles under his eyes slowly faded. He had regained his sense of self, and the regrets that had once weighed him down were now a distant memory. The family had come to realize that happiness wasn't measured in material possessions or social status. It was found in the genuine laughter that filled their home, in the warmth of their connections, and in the freedom to pursue their passions without fear. And so, the Wakefield family learned a valuable lesson. The pursuit of happiness might take unexpected turns, but it was worth every laugh, every tear, and every moment spent together. Years passed, and the Wakefield family settled into their new, simpler life. The bustling city streets and high-rises of Manhattan were replaced with a quieter neighborhood where their cozy apartment felt like a warm embrace. The penthouse on 42nd Street was just a memory, and the family didn't miss it one bit. Jack continued to make people laugh as the beloved pop-up comedian of New York City. He would show up unannounced at various comedy clubs, and his loyal following would spread the news through social media. Fans flocked to see him, and the venues he visited thrived. In the midst of his success, Jack stayed grounded. He still made time for his family, often taking them to his shows and including them in his creative process. He encouraged Skipper, Joni, and Ethan to pursue their own interests, emphasizing the importance of being true to oneself. Jane, now a dedicated schoolteacher, found fulfillment in her work and in the vibrant family life they had all rediscovered. The penthouse on 42nd Street was replaced with a cozy apartment in a quieter neighborhood, but none of them missed the opulence they had left behind. With each passing day, Jack's sleep improved, and the dark circles under his eyes slowly faded. He had regained his sense of self, and the regrets that had once weighed him down were now a distant memory. The family had come to realize that happiness wasn't measured in material possessions or social status. It was found in the genuine laughter that filled their home, in the warmth of their connections, and in the freedom to pursue their passions without fear. And so the Wakefield family learned a valuable lesson. The pursuit of happiness might take unexpected turns, but it was worth every laugh, every tear, and every moment spent together. Years passed, and the Wakefield family settled into their new, simpler life. The bustling city streets and high-rises of Manhattan were replaced with a quieter neighborhood, where their cozy apartment felt like a warm embrace. The penthouse on 42nd Street was just a memory, and the family didn't miss it one bit. Jack continued to make people laugh as the beloved pop-up comedian of New York City. His reputation was unwavering, and his performances remained as packed and energetic as ever. He had achieved a level of success that allowed him to balance his career and family life perfectly. Jane had become a respected schoolteacher, nurturing young minds and finding fulfillment in her work. Her decision to return to teaching had proven to be a source of happiness, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Skipper and Joni had thrived in their new school, where they could be themselves without the judgment of their former classmates. They pursued their interests passionately, and Skipper had developed a talent for painting, while Joni excelled in writing. Ethan was growing up surrounded by love and laughter, a far cry from the distant father he once knew. The Wakefield family had rediscovered their connection. They shared dinners together, attended Jack's performances as a family, and made time for each other's interests. They laughed, talked, and supported one another in ways they never had before. As the years rolled on, Jack couldn't help but reflect on the life he had left behind. The world of finance, the power lunches, and the prestige of his former career felt like a distant dream. But it was a dream he no longer desired. The memory of that chance encounter with Mike, his childhood friend, had been the catalyst for his transformation. One evening, as he sat in their cozy living room with Jane and the children, Jack spoke from the heart. "I want you all to know how grateful I am for this life we've built together," he began. "I thought money and success were the keys to happiness, but I was wrong. Happiness is right here, with all of you." Tears welled up in Jane's eyes as she reached for Jack's hand. "We're grateful too, Jack," she said. "You've given us a second chance at happiness, and we'll never take it for granted." The children chimed in, expressing their love and appreciation for their father's transformation. They understood that their family had been saved from a life of superficiality, and they cherished the bonds they had formed. Jack's success as a comedian continued to grow, but he chose not to travel or pursue fame on a grand scale. Instead, he focused on performing in New York City, bringing laughter to the lives of those around him while never compromising the time he spent with his family. One evening at one of his performances, Jack took a moment to reflect on the journey that had led him to this point. The audience's laughter filled the room, and he couldn't help but smile. He had found his true calling, but more importantly, he had found his family. As he walked off stage that night, he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The applause and admiration of the crowd were rewarding, but they paled in comparison to the love and laughter he found at home. In the end, Jack had learned that life was about balance, about pursuing one's passions, and about cherishing the moments spent with loved ones. Money and success, once his sole focus, had taken a backseat to the richness of a life rediscovered. And so, the Wakefield family continued to laugh, to love, and to live a life filled with meaning. They had learned that happiness was not something to be chased. It was something to be found within the bonds of family and the pursuit of one's true passions. As the curtain fell on this chapter of their lives, the Wakefield family knew that their story was not about endings but about beginnings. They had found the true meaning of happiness, and together, they were ready to embrace whatever adventures lay ahead.